The truth about olive oil that could save your life. Most heart attacks do not happen suddenly. They do not announce themselves with dramatic warning signs on a Tuesday afternoon. They build quietly, invisibly, meal after meal, oil after oil, year after year. And the most terrifying part of all is that the vast majority of people have absolutely no idea that this slow deterioration is happening inside their own bodies right now. The stubborn belly fat that will not budge, no matter what you try. The mental fog and difficulty concentrating that hits you every afternoon around 2 or 3 p.m. The blood pressure that has been creeping upward on your last few checkups. The persistent fatigue that follows you through the day no matter how much sleep you get. The visceral fat wrapping itself around your internal organs like a slow burning fuse. These are not random, unrelated inconveniences. These are warning signals. These are your body's way of telling you that something has been going wrong for a long time. And what the researchers discovered was so significant that it genuinely surprised cardiologists around the world. People who consumed approximately 4 tablespoons of a high-quality olive oil each day reduced their risk of heart attack, stroke, and cardiovascular death by nearly 30%. 30% from a fruit, from something you can buy at a grocery store and drizzle on your eggs in the morning. But here is what almost nobody is telling you. A significant portion of the olive oil currently sitting on supermarket shelves will not give you any of those benefits. Worse, some of it may actually be making things worse. I know that most people genuinely believe they are making a healthy choice when they reach for that bottle. I believed the same thing for years. But a substantial percentage of those bottles contain oil that is already oxidized, low polyphenol products that have been sitting under fluorescent lighting for months, slowly losing the very compounds that made olive oil so powerful in the first place. By the end of this lesson, you are going to know exactly how to identify fake or degraded olive oil in seconds using a simple throat test that almost no one knows about. We will walk through it together. You will understand why genuine, high-quality, extra virgin olive oil behaves almost like an anti-inflammatory medicine inside your body, and you will understand how something as accessible and affordable as 4 tablespoons a day could fundamentally change the trajectory of your heart health, your inflammation levels, your energy, your blood sugar regulation, and your overall longevity over the next 2 decades. Because this is not really just a lesson about olive oil. It is about whether the foods currently sitting in your kitchen are slowly healing you or slowly destroying you. And that question deserves a real answer. What your doctor has not told you about heart disease. Heart disease does not show up overnight. It does not knock on your door and introduce itself. It builds silently for 10 years, 20 years, sometimes even longer. The majority of people who have a heart attack receive no meaningful warning beforehand. They simply have one, out of nowhere. And the reason this keeps happening, the reason heart disease remains the #1 killer in the United States year after year, comes down to something most people have never heard discussed in a doctor's office: silent inflammation. There are 2 distinct categories of inflammation, and understanding the difference between them is critical. Acute inflammation is the kind you can feel and see. You sprain your ankle and it swells. You strain your shoulder at the gym and it aches for a few days. Your body mounts a visible, temporary response to a localized threat. That is acute inflammation doing its job correctly. Chronic low-grade inflammation is something entirely different. You cannot feel it. You cannot see it. Your doctor almost certainly has not tested you for it during your annual physical, but it is present, it is active, and it is quietly eroding the protective lining of your arteries day after day, while you sit at your desk, while you eat the foods that the food industry has told you are perfectly healthy, while you go about your life completely unaware. Now add insulin resistance to that picture. Research suggests that as many as 93% of Americans are experiencing some degree of insulin resistance right now. Layer on top of that chronically elevated cortisol from the relentless low-grade stress of modern life. And then add visceral fat, the metabolically active fat that accumulates around your organs and functions almost like an inflammatory organ in its own right. That combination, silent inflammation, insulin resistance, chronic cortisol elevation, and visceral fat, is the actual mechanism behind the epidemic that is killing hundreds of thousands of people every single year. Approximately 700,000 Americans die from heart disease annually. That calculates to roughly one person every 33 seconds. Not from one bad meal, not from one stressful week, from the silent, slow accumulation of the wrong inputs year after year in a body that was doing its best to compensate and eventually ran out of runway. And the cruelest part of all is that you can look completely fine on the outside. You can feel mostly okay on most days. You can pass your annual physical without any red flags. And the damage is still happening underneath in the walls of your arteries, in the inflammatory markers no one measured, in the insulin resistance no one discussed. That is why what I am about to share with you matters so much. Because there is something genuinely simple that you can begin doing this week, and the scientific evidence behind it is among the strongest and most replicated in all of cardiovascular medicine. What olive oil actually does inside your body. Most people hear the words olive oil and they think healthy fat, Mediterranean diet, cooking ingredient. And while all of those things are technically true, that framing is so far beneath what high quality extra virgin olive oil actually does inside your body that it almost fails to capture anything meaningful about the compound at all. Real, genuine, high quality extra virgin olive oil, and I will explain repeatedly why I keep emphasizing the word real, contains a class of bioactive compounds called polyphenols. And one of these polyphenols in particular has generated genuine excitement across the scientific community. It is called oleocanthal. Oleocanthal was first identified by a researcher named Gary Beauchamp at the Monell Chemical Senses Center in 2005. He was sampling olive oil in Sicily when he noticed that characteristic sharp, peppery sting at the back of his throat. The sensation that anyone who has ever tasted genuinely high-quality olive oil will recognize immediately. And rather than simply enjoying the flavor, he had a thought. That sensation felt remarkably similar to the effect of liquid ibuprofen going down, so he tested the hypothesis rigorously, and what he found was published in the journal Nature. Oleocanthal was shown to work on the same enzymatic pathways that ibuprofen targets, the COX-1 and COX-2 enzymes, which are central to the body's inflammatory response. The same mechanism from a fruit that grows on trees. From something people in Southern Europe have been consuming daily for thousands of years. To be clear, consuming a tablespoon of olive oil is not equivalent to taking 200 milligrams of ibuprofen. The dose is different, the effect is gentler, and the mechanism operates over a much longer time frame. But every single day, with every spoonful of genuine high polyphenol olive oil, you are providing your body with consistent food-based, low-level anti-inflammatory support, the kind of quiet, cumulative support that your arteries desperately need, the kind that builds protection over years rather than masking symptoms in the short term. And that is just one polyphenol out of dozens present in real extra virgin olive oil. Hydroxytyrosol, oleuropein tyrosol, each one performing a different biological function, neutralizing free radicals, stabilizing blood sugar, supporting mitochondrial function, the tiny energy-producing structures inside every cell in your body, protecting the endothelial lining of your blood vessels from the kind of oxidative damage that becomes a heart attack or stroke 10, 20, or 30 years down the line. When you genuinely understand what is in that bottle, you stop seeing it as a cooking ingredient. You start seeing it the way that the people of southern Italy and Greece and Crete have always seen it, as daily protection, daily defense, and daily medicine that happens to taste extraordinary. 3 or 4 tablespoons a day from a fruit. One of the most powerful interventions in all of preventive cardiovascular medicine available at your local grocery store. The research that changed dietary guidelines around the world. When I cite a 30% risk reduction, I want you to know precisely where that number originates, because understanding the source of that figure changes how seriously you take it. In 2013, a landmark Spanish clinical trial called the Predimed Study was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. Led by Dr. Ramon Estruc, the trial enrolled 7,447 participants, every single one of them already at elevated risk of cardiovascular disease. Some had type 2 diabetes, some had high blood pressure, some had elevated LDL cholesterol, some had all three simultaneously. The participants were divided into three groups. One group followed a Mediterranean diet supplemented with approximately 4 tablespoons of extra virgin olive oil per day. Another group followed the Mediterranean diet supplemented with mixed nuts. The third group, the control group, followed the standard low-fat diet that physicians around the world had been recommending for decades. The results were so strong that the trial was stopped early. Continuing to keep the control group on the low-fat diet, when the evidence was already this clear, was judged to be ethically unjustifiable. The Mediterranean group consuming extra virgin olive oil experienced a roughly 30% reduction in major cardiovascular events, heart attacks, strokes, and cardiovascular deaths combined. 3 out of every 10 events that would have occurred statistically simply did not happen because of food. The study was so consequential that it directly influenced dietary guidelines in multiple countries. A follow-up analysis of the same pre-dimed data, published the following year, examined the dose-response relationship more specifically. Participants in the highest hurdle of extra virgin olive oil consumption showed a 39% lower risk of cardiovascular disease overall. In some analytical models, the reduction in cardiovascular death reached as high as 48%. Then in 2022, Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health published a study in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology that followed more than 92,000 American men and women over a period of 28 years. The Americans who consumed the highest amounts of olive oil, and the threshold was not even particularly high, just over half a teaspoon daily, showed a 19% reduction in cardiovascular mortality, a 17% lower risk of dying from cancer, a 29% lower risk of dying from neurodegenerative diseases, including Alzheimer's, and an 18% lower risk of dying from respiratory diseases. Different countries, different decades, different researchers, different study populations. Same answer over and over again. Some of the longest-lived populations on Earth share a small number of consistent habits, strong community bonds, a deep orientation toward gratitude, and daily olive oil consumption, beginning in childhood and continuing throughout a full lifetime. This is not a wellness trend. This is not something that went viral on social media last year. This is one of the most consistently replicated findings in the entire history of nutritional science. The mistakes that cost you. Every single benefit, you now understand the science. You are ready to make a change. You are going to walk into a grocery store, select a bottle, and begin protecting your cardiovascular system. And this is precisely where most people inadvertently lose all of the benefits before they even get home. Because here is the reality. Most of the olive oil on grocery store shelves does not meet the criteria that the research was actually conducted on. And if you are making any of the following common mistakes, and most people are making at least 3 of them, you are simply not getting the benefits that the studies demonstrated. Period. Mistake 1, buying olive oil in a clear glass or plastic bottle. Light is the primary enemy of olive oil polyphenols. Light oxidizes them and destroys them. The studies that demonstrated that 30% cardiovascular risk reduction were not conducted on oils that had been sitting under fluorescent supermarket lighting in transparent bottles for 6 months. If you can see through the bottle, the beneficial compounds are in all likelihood already significantly degraded. Mistake 2, buying old olive oil. This is critically important because olive oil is fundamentally unlike wine. It does not improve with age. It deteriorates. A genuine high-quality extra virgin olive oil will carry a harvest date on the label, not simply a best by date, but an actual harvest date indicating when the olives were pressed. If the bottle carries no harvest date, that is a significant red flag. If the harvest date is listed but falls more than 18 months in the past, the oil has already declined substantially in polyphenol content. Mistake 3. Purchasing blended oils. Some products labeled as olive oil are actually blended with inflammatory seed oils, canola, soybean, sunflower, that are quietly added to reduce production costs. Read the ingredient label carefully. If it lists any oil other than extra virgin olive oil, you are paying a premium price for inflammatory industrial seed oil disguised in respectable packaging. Mistake 4. Buying low polyphenol oil without knowing it. This is perhaps the most widespread and consequential mistake of all. Most commercial olive oil, even products that are technically labeled extra virgin, can have extremely low polyphenol concentrations, sometimes as low as 50 milligrams per kilogram. The oils used in the clinical research I described typically contain 300, 400, or even 500 milligrams per kilogram. You could consume the lower quality product faithfully every single day for the rest of your life and never approach the physiological effect demonstrated in those studies. It is just oil and calories at that point, nothing more. Mistake 5. Cooking low polyphenol olive oil at high heat. Here is a nuance that confuses many people. A genuine high polyphenol extra virgin olive oil is actually among the most heat-stable cooking oils available because the polyphenols themselves protect the oil from oxidizing under heat. Low polyphenol olive oil, however, oxidizes immediately upon contact with a hot pan, generating inflammatory compounds that you then pour directly over your food and consume while believing you are making a healthy choice. Mistake 6. Using good olive oil to dress bad food. Drizzling high-quality extra virgin olive oil over ultra-processed food loaded with refined carbohydrates, seed oils, and high fructose corn syrup will not rescue that meal or deliver meaningful health benefits. The participants in the predim trial were eating real, whole, minimally processed food alongside their olive oil. The compounds work synergistically with quality nutrients. They do not function as a corrective for nutritional damage elsewhere in the diet. How to identify real olive oil in seconds? Here is the test. It costs nothing. It takes 5 seconds, and it will tell you more about the quality of your olive oil than any label claim ever will. Pour a small amount into a spoon or a shot glass and consume it straight. Do not cook with it. Do not mix it into anything. Just drink it. If the olive oil is genuinely high in polyphenols, if it contains the oleocanthal and the other bioactive compounds that make it therapeutically valuable, you will feel a distinct, sharp, peppery burn at the back of your throat. Some people describe it as a slight fuzziness on the tongue. Some will actually cough or clear their throat involuntarily. This is not a flaw. This is not the oil being too strong. This sensation is the oleocanthal activating the exact same biological receptors that ibuprofen targets. This is the medicine announcing itself. If the oil slides down smoothly with no burn, no pepper, no sensation whatsoever, that is a red flag. That oil is flat. The polyphenols are gone. The therapeutic value has been lost somewhere between the harvest and your kitchen counter. When selecting olive oil at a grocery store, look for a dark glass bottle, an extra virgin designation, a clearly printed harvest date within the past 18 months, and ideally certification from a recognized quality authority. And if you must choose between bottles that otherwise meet all your criteria, reach to the back of the shelf where the bottles have been exposed to the least amount of light. That small difference in light exposure may have preserved a meaningful portion of the polyphenol content. The daily protocol: 4 tablespoons, 3 moments. Understanding the science is only half of the equation. The other half is translating that understanding into a daily habit that is simple enough to sustain for the rest of your life. Here is the protocol that research supports and that I personally follow. First, in the morning, before coffee, before food, before anything else, consume 1 tablespoon of high-quality extra virgin olive oil straight. If you find the flavor too intense on its own, a squeeze of fresh lemon or a splash of apple cider vinegar pairs naturally with it and supports both digestion and morning blood sugar stability. Neither addition breaks a fast for those who practice intermittent fasting. Second, before your largest meal of the day, typically dinner for most people, consume another tablespoon. You can take it directly from a spoon or drizzle it generously over whatever vegetables, proteins, or salads you are preparing. The key is consuming it alongside nutrient dense whole foods, particularly polyphenol rich vegetables and quality animal proteins, because these compounds work synergistically. Their benefits compound when consumed together. Third, optionally, a tablespoon before bed. There is emerging evidence suggesting that olive oil consumed before sleep may support overnight cortisol regulation and contribute to more stable blood sugar levels during the night, which can improve both sleep quality and next morning metabolic function. That is the entire protocol. 3 moments in the day, 1 tablespoon each time, 15 seconds of effort. The cumulative effect over weeks, months, and years is where the cardiovascular protection actually materializes. The choice you make with every meal. With every meal you eat, with every oil you pour, with every food decision you make throughout the day, you are either building disease or building resilience in your body. There is genuinely no neutral ground. There is no pause button. The food you eat tomorrow is either protecting you or degrading you, and it is doing so whether you are paying attention or not. If your abdominal fat has not moved despite your efforts, if your blood pressure continues to climb on your annual checkups, if your energy reliably collapses by early afternoon, if your inflammatory markers have been quietly trending upward year after year, your body is not broken. You are not simply aging poorly. You were never given the information you needed to make the choices that would have produced different outcomes. Go to your kitchen tonight, pull out the olive oil you are currently using, take a small sip and hold it in your mouth for a moment. If there is no burn, no pepper, no sensation at the back of your throat, replace it this week, not next month, this week, because this is not really about olive oil. It is about whether your body is silently inflaming and deteriorating for the next 20 years, or whether it is actively protecting and repairing itself instead. That trajectory is determined in meaningful part by the quality of the inputs you give it every single day. The science is clear, the mechanism is real, the habit takes 15 seconds. The only question remaining is whether you choose to act on it.